For over 2 years, everybody waited for the man charged in the disappearance of 13-year-old Naziah to go to trial. The trial never happened. It ended with a plea deal, and a lot of people weren't happy about it. So, what led prosecutors to make that decision? Let's break it down. Naziah Harris was 13 years old when she disappeared from Detroit in January of 2024. She was last seen on house camera footage after she got off the bus coming home from school. Now, this camera footage is somewhere near Cornwall and 3 Mile. This is a still shot of her on the bus before she got off and was seen on that surveillance footage. Now, she was reported missing on January 10th by her grandma, Annette Harris. And investigators also believed that Naziah may have been pregnant. In many missing persons cases, detectives start by asking one simple question: who was the last person known to have contact with him? In the case of Naziah, that line of questioning led to an adult male. Now, through digital evidence, they found that man to be 41-year-old Jarvis Butts. Now, at the time, Jarvis was the boyfriend of Naziah's aunt, Shannon Harris, and he's also the father to Shannon's children. Through phone records, police uncovered text messages between Jarvis and Naziah, most of an inappropriate sexual nature. They also found digital searches that Jarvis made for things like herbal abortion teas and can I drink bread antifreeze and abortion pills and all of that kind of stuff. They also gathered witness statements and they believed that he was the last person that saw Naziah alive. And at this point in the search, Naziah's body still hasn't been recovered, and that becomes huge later on for the prosecutors. Now, on September 27th, 2024, Jarvis Butts was arrested in connection to the disappearance and death of Naziah Harris. He was charged with child sexually abusive activity. He was charged with second degree criminal sexual conduct. And he was charged with first degree premeditated murder. Now the prosecution had a theory. Naziah was sexually assaulted. She had become pregnant and was killed later on. And this is where things get even more disturbing. Now, while prosecutors were investigating Jarvis for the Naziah Harris case, they uncovered multiple other criminally sexual conduct events going on. And eventually, that led to 6 separate cases and charges involving girls as young as 4 years old. And this changed the scope of the prosecution because now it wasn't just a murder case anymore. Now it's a pattern of sexual abuse cases. Now let's talk about this plea deal. So after all of that going to court all throughout 2025 and having all the hearings and all of that kind of thing, prosecutors uncovering all the evidence that they did and um, bringing forth or letting the courts and everything know all of the witnesses and things that they were going to have on the stand. Eventually, instead of going to trial, Jarvis decided to take a plea deal. Now, that plea deal included second-degree murder only for Naziah, and it dropped the sexual assault charges that were for Naziah. It also added on 4 second-degree criminal sexual conduct cases and 1 third-degree criminal sexual conduct case. And for that, like I said, they had to drop a couple of charges. And this right here is the part that a lot of people don't agree with. But prosecutors, they had their reasons. Let's get into it. Now, there are 3 major reasons why a prosecutor might offer a plea deal. One is nobody recovered. Just like in this case, they didn't have a body. 2, proving premeditated murder is difficult, especially if you don't have a body. And 3, this avoids the risk of losing at trial. Let's break that down a little bit further. Now, back in January of 2025, Jarvis Butts from the 6th to the 9th, he had his preliminary hearing. At that hearing, the judge bound his case over for trial. That's a legal way of saying there's enough evidence here that this case can go to trial and be seen by a jury. So that's what happened. Now, keep in mind that at this time, prosecutors they still didn't have a body. Remember, first reason for a plea deal is no body. No body, it's hard to prove premeditation. That's the second reason. The third reason, if you don't have a body, you can't prove premeditation, there's also a good chance that when if you go to trial, you might get a not guilty verdict, which is not what we want here. Now, we take a plea deal. I give you less time. You get lesser charges, still a sufficient amount of time, but you get lesser charges and you give me something. You give me something. We don't have a body. We want to know what happened. How about this? I offer you a lesser sentence. You tell us some information. Let us know what happened to Naziah. And it has to be truthful. And that's what happened right here. Now, this is the press release outlining what happened and the sentence that Jarvis received. This afternoon, Judge Nicholas Hathaway sentenced defendant Jarvis Butts to 35 to 60 years for second-degree murder for the murder 13-year-old Naziah Harris. He was also sentenced on 5 other criminal sexual conduct cases, all to be served concurrently in the Michigan Department of Corrections, MDOC. Those other charges were the criminal sexual conduct cases with the females, all, the other 5 females. Now, for those cases, he was sentenced to 10 to 15 years for each, but they were all run concurrently. What does that mean? Let's talk about what a concurrent sentence is, what that means. Concurrent sentences, all sentences are served at the same time, equal to the length of the longest individual sentence, often used for crimes arising for the same act or incident. Consecutive, they're stacked um, back to back, meaning they are going to run separately. That's not the case here. His longest sentence was 35 to 60 years. That was for the second-degree murder. So that's what his sentence is. The 10 to 15 years for the other 5 cases are running concurrently or at the same time as that 35 to 60-year sentence. I know. I know. And I know it was a lot of speculation about where she was, her body being in a river and all of that kind of stuff. That information has not been confirmed. The location and her whereabouts have not been released. The information that was told to the prosecutors and to the family from Jarvis Butts due to the plea deal agreement was not released to the public. And it says in the statement that will not be released to the public. Um, During the hearing where he was, the sentencing hearing, the prosecutors said that they were satisfied with the information that they were given. Unless the family releases any information about what's going on to us, we have no idea what happened, where she is. Everything is just speculation from this point on. I can tell you where Jarvis will be serving his time at because he had a court date on March the 16th, which set that up. March 12th, Jarvis Butts was sentenced to his 35 to 60 years. He sat in court the whole entire time. He had a mask on his face. This is the most recent mugshot of Jarvis Butts. He is a prisoner. That's his current status. His earliest release date is September 26, 2059. His maximum discharge date is September 26, 2084. His assigned location is Charles Egler Reception and Guidance Center. These are the details for where Jarvis Butts will serve his sentence. And as I said, the image was taken on 316. Now, I know I promised y'all a breakdown of the actual sentencing hearing because of the victim impact statements that were given. Um, and I am going to do that. I do want to do that. However, I wanted to give y'all the full entire scope from beginning to end of the case um, because it just happened. It's done with now. And although this was about his being sentenced, it was more about the justice that was found and given and served for this 13-year-old. Actually, would have been 14-year-old had he not done what he done. She would still be here right now and she would be 14 years old. I wanted to give this story to her. I wanted to give this story to her. We'll get into what happened at his sentencing hearing because that's important too because his kids spoke at that hearing and their what they said was emotional and that needs to be heard as well. But I wanted to give this story to her. His sentencing hearing is coming up next, not immediately after this, but it'll be dropped sometime soon. I appreciate y'all for sticking around. I hope this gave y'all the information that y'all was looking for. I hope this cleared up some questions. Please feel free to drop your comments, your thoughts in my comments, and let's talk about this some more. Y'all stay safe.